when they knew the recall was getting on the ballot. They weren't conducting proper oversight over their own budget responsibilities or the district staff that works on budgets. Even after the state determined that the district was no longer a going concern, the key words that lead to a state takeover, and the district staff did develop a budget proposal, board members tried to scuttle it, and President Lopez voted against it, the only plan available to ward off state takeover. At the same meeting where the state warned about unnecessary new expenditures, they voted to appeal a lower court defeat of their effort to remove the Washington High murals. Hundreds of thousands of dollars more to be spent on the slight chance they could prevail, and then, if they did, spend over $1 million more they didn't have to remove the murals. One thing that unites recall proponents, we want more teaching, not less. Teach the lessons of the Washington High murals and the Dewey Crumpler counter murals. Removing the murals, as this board tried to do, hides the history that must be taught. Second, improving the education of all students at middle school and before, so they have a shot at qualifying for Lowell's academic admission standards and doing well and enjoying their high school years. This school board has turned its back on Lowell parents and alums who have offered to assist middle school students to elevate their learning. Today, barely half of all 8th graders meet grade level standards in math. Only 57% do so in English. Instead of improving their education, this school board takes away 8th grade algebra for those who are ready for it and does little to get more students ready. When it counted, they were all too preoccupied by renaming 44 schools, while parents waited hours at board meetings to hear about reopening schools, and those questions would go unanswered. Well, there's a lot more to talk about. Lowell, the renaming, 5 former school board commissioners have come out in support of the recall. But I'll stop for now and turn it back over to you, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Perfect on the time. So thank you for that. With that, I want to turn this over to Brandee to talk about why we shouldn't be recalling the school board members. Brandee, thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. And it's great to be here talking to you all at PAR. Enjoyed coming to a board meeting a couple of years ago. Again, my name is Brandee Marckmann. I've lived in the Richmond district since 2004. My husband and I and our 10-year-old son live near Mountain Lake Park. I see many neighbors here. I love living in the Richmond, so happy to be here. I'm a public school parent. I finished a 2-year term as chair of the school's kite council at my son's school, so my perspective comes as a parent. My reasons for opposing this recall mainly are practical. First of all, none of the commissioners has broken the law. This doesn't really meet the threshold for recalling someone. If they had stolen money, done something horribly egregious or unethical things with money, I'd likely support the recall, but since they haven't, I just can't. I also am not a fan of just this recall fever that California and the US tends to be engulfed in. According to Ballotpedia, between 2002 and 2020, there were about 18 to 38 school board recalls in the year, never more than 38. In 2021, there were 91, and 27 of those are in California. I'm someone who cares a lot about budgets, and this recall is costing taxpayers $3 million. And 8 months after this special election, the same 3 people are up for re-election. So my philosophy is, can we just save the money? It's so close to the next election, and San Francisco has way too many, just very frequent elections as it is. Our schools need resources, not recalls. California is in the bottom 10 states when it comes to per pupil spending, and San Francisco lags behind all other many other California counties when it comes to percentage of property tax revenue going toward our schools. As a taxpayer, I'd rather see our money for our schools instead of taken out of our public treasury for elections. There's so many other things we need to pay for in San Francisco: funding our schools, maintaining our streets, funding muni, funding services for victims of crime. And so I would also propose that if our school is in a budget deficit, then we need to have our state. My son's coming in here. Thank you, dear. You just brought me food. Sorry about that. our state legislature and our board of supervisors really need to do a better job of making sure that our schools are funded. New York is #1 in the nation when it comes to per pupil spending. As I mentioned, California is in the bottom 10. As far as being responsive to parents, I can say just from talking to parents, I know President Lopez and Commissioner Collins. Those are the two I'm speaking of. I'm also against the recall of Commissioner Moliga. All three have been very responsive to parents. We feel like we always get an email back. I mean, not every time, but they do make it, they do really try hard. Also to keep in mind, unlike a city like Miami, San Francisco School Board is not a full-time position. They don't get paid. So the board really has very limited scope on what they can do. Really, their sole power is to hire or fire the superintendent. It's not like a manager role, really. And I guess another reason why I don't support the recall is that I know just from talking, no community is a monolith. There will probably be recall supporters in a variety of communities in San Francisco, but I don't want to hurt a lot of these communities, the Black community, a lot of folks in the Latinx community, and the Pacific Islander community. No group is really a monolith, but they really work hard with these communities and have a good relationship with them. I just want to comment, my school was one of the 44 slated for renaming. Lots of schools did this. The former governor of Virginia ordered schools renamed. There are probably about 200 school districts throughout the US that renamed during the pandemic. I know John mentioned the Washington mural. These school board members have really listened to a lot of our Black and Indigenous students and parents who have asked for their mural to be removed. They've said it's very hard for kids to every day at 7 o'clock or 7:45 walk in the school and see a picture of a dead Indian and hear, "I'll meet you by the dead Indian" every day. I know that PAR did not take a position on that issue a couple of years ago, and I thank you for that. I think my time is up. Thank you very much, everyone.
I got to unmute myself. So, hey, thank you, Brandee. I appreciate it. Thank you for staying on time. I do appreciate that. With John, can you have your second spot on Proposition C, which is Faauuga. So it'll be a John and then Faauuga. So go ahead, John.
Thank you. Has Commissioner Moliga joined us?
Yes, he has. I saw
Great.
him. I saw him on here, so he is here. So
Great. Okay. Well,
I'm actually going to make him a co-host and make you a co-host, so that you guys are on front.
Right. Yeah, Commissioner Moliga has been hand in glove with the other two commissioners, and that's displayed by the record number of people who have sought his recall as well. So I don't want to belabor a lot of the points that I've raised already, because they clearly apply to Commissioner Moliga as well. The lack of responsiveness on reopening the school safely. Now, Brandee just said that this commissioners haven't broken the law. That's untrue. They've broken the law consistently on the Brown Act. The Brown Act is not some technicality. It is the fundamental to democracy of being able to have, making sure that our public officials have accountability, that they are that they say what they're going to do at a meeting and then do it. The Brown Act violations, the Environmental Quality Act violations on the Washington High mural, of the Lowell litigation, and on the renaming, all violations of the law. So it's clear that they have broken the law. And in terms of what the requirements are for a recall, well, I haven't seen anybody try to take this recall down legally. We have met every threshold and surpassed it to qualify for the ballot. In terms of the schools needing more money, of course that has been the case. It's been the case since I was in school, and we had the first effort against Prop 13 and right before that. But things go beyond money, and that's why this is a recall issue rather than just wait for them to be voted on at the end of their terms. This is like saying, well, give me a better vehicle to drive east on Gary, no matter what vehicle I'm in, no matter how much money you pay, you're not going to reach the beach by going east on Gary. This school district is going in the wrong direction. The school board is taking us in the wrong direction. So it's not simply a matter of money. And the measurement of the percentage of tax revenue for the schools, that's not the correct measurement to determine whether it's the correct amount of money for our taxpayers to be providing. And if we are in the situation we're in with all the other problems that we have, what money should we be taking away? This is about the conduct and the record of the 3 members of the school board. It's not about the governor of Virginia. It's not about naming buildings in other parts of the country. It's not about a national recall effort. This is about what parents see every day, what parents saw during COVID, what parents saw, what they see now. They see the Salesforce Tower, but they don't see a pathway for their children to get from, because the math program is being marginalized. They don't see a pathway for their kids to graduate from our public schools and go to jobs in tech or in STEM. This we put at the feet of the school board. And I'll just say one other point. I commend Commissioner Moliga for being here tonight. Where is Commissioner Collins? Where is Commissioner Lopez? I'll tell you where Commissioner Collins is. She's charging between $10 and $60 a piece for people to hear her talk on racial equity in the school district. I find that appalling. She should be out here talking to the voters, listening for once. And that's not what they're doing. Look at the voter handbook, and you'll see no response from Commissioner Collins on the things that the parents and San Franciscans care about. That is why it is a unique coalition, from Matt Gonzalez to Quentin Kopp, to 5 former school board members who sat in those very chairs. They know the responsibilities of the job. They know it's important. Dan Kelly, Eddie Chin, Carlota Del Portillo, Fred Rodriguez, and Jill Wentz have all come out in support of this recall, as has Mayor Breed, Senator Wiener, former Mayor Agnos. So this is no right-wing cabal trying to take over the school board. This is trying to provide us with some sense and some sensibility back in our schools. Our parents need it. Our community needs it. We all need it. And that's why we urge you to vote yes on propositions A, B, and C on February the 15th. Thank you.
Okay, perfect, John. I was just about to jump in there, but thank you perfectly. With that, we do have Commissioner Moliga. Funga, if you are here and ready to go, we are looking forward to hearing from you. So please.
Hey. Yep, I'm here. Sorry for interrupting.
No
Good
worries.
evening, everyone, and I apologize for my camera at this moment. I am going to do my best to turn it on. I'm in my car. I'm just coming from another recall school board forum here at Manny's, and so but happy to be here. I prepared some words that I want to read off for you all tonight, and then I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that folks have. So, but again, I just apologize for my camera right now. I'm a commissioner on the school board and also an elected member of the San Francisco Democratic County Central Committee. I'm a graduate of Balboa High School and the first Pacific Islander ever elected to the office in this city. There is a lot that has been said about my performance on the school board by the proponents of this recall, but their words regarding me are inaccurate. The truth is, I have been focused on the needs of our public school students, families, teachers, and staff during this pandemic. Throughout 2020 and 2021, I stated that public schools needed to open as soon as they were safe, for mental health concerns. Further, I have written policies to increase enrollment, improve fiscal responsibility, and to improve learning and health services for students, families, teachers, and staff. I authored the coordinated care resolution that created a citywide wellness check system for public schools, students, and families. This resolution was praised by the CDC. As saving the district money during the budget shortfall has become the core element of the middle school mental health redesign. I was a supporter of the Community Hubs initiative. I partnered with DCYF to open the hub at the Samoan Community Development Center to ensure youth in Visitation Valley were included in the services being provided by the city. Although students have returned to school, this hub is still providing COVID relief and services to the community. I authored the Our Healing in Our Hands resolution that placed additional health workers and therapists in public schools prior to the pandemic. and pioneered a peer-led program where students support fellow students. In addition, my focus on mental health, I have authored resolutions to mitigate the budget deficit, restructuring the transportation department to save $25 million over the next 5 years, updating Medi-Cal services to produce up to $5 million in revenue, help marginalized communities by opening an enrollment center in the southeast of San Francisco, creating the first pre-K Samoan immersion program in the United States. Lastly, but still more importantly, a recall is not a function of our democratic process. There are not any candidates to measure my work against. This is a recall, and the bar for deciding if an elected official should be recalled is much higher. A voter has to decide if the elected actions warrant immediate removal and cannot wait until the next general election. In my case, this attempt to recall me is unjustified. I've done nothing to warrant any immediate removal. Please join the United Educators of San Francisco, SEIU Local 1021, American Federation's Teachers of Local 2121, the Harvey Milk LGBT Democratic Club, San Francisco Women's Political Committee, San Francisco Young Democrats, former State Senator Mark Leno, former Assemblymember Tom Amiano, former Supervisor Sandra Fewer, former Supervisor David Campos, Board President Shimon Walton, Supervisor Hillary Roning, Gordon Marr, and many others to vote no on C.
Perfect. Thank you again, Faauuga, for coming and doing that. That was wonderful. We really appreciate having you here today. With that, we're going to do questions in a few seconds. What I do want to do again is remind everyone that we are PAR. We are, as John said, one of the largest and one of the longest lasting neighborhood associations within the city. We've been around for 50 years, maybe a little more. We are always looking for great members. So if you want to join again, please go to sfpar.org and go to the pay by PayPal and become a member there. And we really hope that some of you do tonight. We appreciate you all coming tonight and supporting us. With that, we're going to go into questions. I'm going to ask you guys to raise your hands to do that. And when you do that, I'm going to ask to try to limit yourself to one question. And then when we get everybody, since we have the raise your hand feature, Gerald, on the Zoom itself, there is a raise your hand feature. And when you can, then we'll try to go around again and give everybody a chance to get a question. And we have a lot of people here tonight, and I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to ask a question if they feel true. And I also want to keep us at some kind of time and respect everybody's time tonight. So with that,
Nick, with that said, could I just interject one item of instruction? For all those who are not using Zoom all the time, under the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, you will find a hand and a button that says raise hand. That's the raise hand that Nick is referring to.
Thank you, Dan, our co-host and guy who's going to help mute people when you are done asking your questions. And our the vice president of PAR too. So everybody, thank you, Dan. Thank you for explaining that. I really do appreciate it because I forgot to do that. So with that, I see Richard Rothman has a question. He has his hand up. So we will go with Richard Rothman. You can ask.
Yes, I'd like to ask Commissioner
one question, and then we'll come back around.
I'm only going to ask one question.
Thank you, my friend.
I'd like to ask Commissioner Moliga, what funds did to pay the Washington attorney's fees, which school board budget did the funds come from?
From my understanding, those funds, and I could double back and check with, staff where those funds from, but if I'm correct, those funds came out of UGF in general fund.
Out of where?
General fund.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Thank you, Richard. Always good, thank you. Mark H has a question.
Commissioner Moliga, can you specifically tell us when you voted differently than Collins and Lopez? Just give us a quick summary of what the issues were where you were different than them, please.
Let me see. Well, the most recent, there's several. We were different on the last budget that was just introduced, right? What else? We were also different in terms of, when we asked, when we introduced a resolution around asking Commissioner Collins to resign from the school board, and so, those were critical decisions this year that, that we were on different sides in terms of, votes. The other one was also around I think it was Commissioner Collins introduced a resolution. I think it was her and President Lopez as well around, the COVID. They wanted more, attention around, the COVID support that this was like early in the school year. For this school year, I voted against that as well, and really my, reasoning around that was around, the budget cost and, were we in a position where it was something that we can do, and, just, work closely with staff and superintendent on.
Why did it ask for a password?
Made the most sense, but yeah, so.
Okay, thank you, Faauuga. I know Gerald, you did have your actual hand up, so I'm assuming you have a question. So we will go with Gerald.
Actually, two very brief questions for Brandee Marckmann.
I know I don't see too many hands up at the moment, but can you limit that to one? And then if I don't see anybody else, I'll come back to the other.
Okay, the $3 million cost for this recall, is that $3 million that would be spent if they are recalled, or is that $3 million that's already being spent no matter what?
That $3 million goes to pay for the election. Whether they're recalled or not, that is paying for the election.
So no matter how you vote, it's gonna still get paid.
Yeah, that's true, but I think we also want to send, I guess my philosophy is, for voters, I really feel like this is kind of a slippery slope. Like, if we keep doing this, I mean, the recall leader, Ada Loygen, has said that she wants to recall all 7 commissioners. So my concern is, like, is this really how we as San Francisco voters want to have elections? Is that instead of having general elections, we just keep asking taxpayers to keep paying for recalls?
Okay.
All right.
If I could respond as well, yeah. Harris and Nick, we don't want to continually have recalls, but we have a unique set of members of the school board who have not just that people disagree, but that they have shut people out of the discussion. They have demonized parents. I've been involved in school board issues for many, many years. I was a member of the school board when I was a student back at Lowell many, many years ago. I have never seen or heard parents be so intimidated by school board members as I have during this time. When Commissioner Collins says, "Oh, I'm listening to a bunch of racists talking about the parents who come and speak before the board," I think that is outrageous, and that is why the only way we have been able to get listened to is through this recall. And it is notable that in terms of this election, we were having an election because we have a special election for the assembly district on the east side of San Francisco, not in the Richmond, but in the east side of San Francisco. We also have the election for the assessor. Mayor Breed's appointee is running unopposed, Joaquin Torres, but that's also on the ballot. If we were, the school board commissioners are shielded for 6 months from the beginning. They're shielded at the beginning of their terms. Now Supervisor Peskin wants to shield them at the end of their terms. I think if this is the only way for people to be heard, then this is an appropriate way. And it's not like we do this all the time. The last time we had a recall was in 1983. And at that time, the San Francisco Democratic Club and the Haight-Ashbury Neighborhood Council and San Franciscans for Public Power, those are that last group was a major opponent of PG&E. By the way, I know Brandee likes to say PG&E is behind this one. They said the recall process is a vital part of our electoral system. It ensures that public officials are held accountable. Characterization of a recall as unfair or of the 35,000 signers as an irresponsible fringe element by opponents reveals their contempt for the democratic process. Those were Democrats saying that about the last recall. And I think that logic applies to this recall as well. The recall is an important part of the democratic process.
Cool, thank you, John. With that, Suya, did you have a question? You had your hand raised and then it lowered. I don't know if you have a question or not.
I'm sorry, that was an error.
Okay, just want to make sure. No worries. I want to make sure I get everybody. It's a little harder on Zoom to make sure I get everybody with their hands and everything. Yep, excuse my language, excuse my mispronunciation if I did. Do you have a question, sir? Oh, you got to unmute yourself too.
I just want to say that I concur with John Trasvina. If there was an ability to have taken all the commissioners, we would have done that. This is the most heinous group I've ever seen in politics, particularly people who are in charge of education and the needs of students, who have an ulterior agenda. That's more important than the needs of students. Whether it's the name change, whether it's the murals, whether it's Lowell, whether it's racism issues, equity, literacy, and they claim this has been going on forever, and systemic racism. I just remind people that at the same time they say that, this board and previous boards have been around for the same length of time, and they have yet to solve their quote issues for decades. And so when you hear people tell you that it's Republicans or it's anything other than the facts that a bunch of frustrated voters or people of color who feel like they've been shamed on, that's not the point. The point is, these are symptoms that have all directions point to one of the critical problems, and that's this school board, all of them, self-created. They have issues regarding bond monies that are probably misspent. There's so many issues. We could talk about this forever. I bring this up because it's a known fact. I deal with facts. I don't deal with opinions. I deal with facts. Thank you.
Okay, we want to limit this to questions, not nothing. We want to make sure we limit this to questions, folks. Jennifer Butterfoss, I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah, that's right.
If you have a question, can you please give that?
Yeah, thank you so much. So my question, I think one of the things I'm having the hardest time reconciling with is the $87 million lawsuit by one of the commissioners, Commissioner Collins. To me, that it just really stings and hurts deeply on a personal level, both as a parent with 2 kids in the public school system and a longtime SFUSD educator for over a decade, just knowing that it's my colleagues, my children's friends, families who would be affected by this $87 million lawsuit brought on by Commissioner Collins while in office, and including her colleagues on the board. I was just wondering, this question's for Brandee Marckmann, how do you like reconcile that in your support of Commissioner Collins specifically? How do you how do you respond to folks who are feeling that hurt and that pain from that lawsuit that she brought on?
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I'm really glad you brought that up. I do want to say, we will really never, none of us here, it's hard for me to really accuse a Black woman of saying that her pain has no worth. I want to say that first of all. I also want to say that those tweets that were found, that where she was what she was describing was an incident at her daughter's school, where there were 2 Latinx boys who were getting bullied by some boys, and no one was doing anything, and her daughters stopped the bullying. And they basically, the bullying was, this was right after the November 2016 election. And they said, they were being teased and said, you know what, Trump's going to support you. The staff didn't do anything there. The kids just went on and on. Her daughter stopped the bullying. She went to report that. And she just felt sad. She just felt really sad. These were—
She's not answering the question.
Okay, hi, can I please have some time to answer the question? Thank you, I am getting to this, but I really think it's important that you have background, Robert. And basically—
She called Asians house N-words.
Diane, could I please finish, please? Okay, thank you, Diane, I'm glad you brought that up. And so she felt very upset. She felt very upset about that. And she said, she just looked at Donald Trump and she said, so Diane, what she was referencing, does anybody know here what speech that was? That was a Malcolm X speech that she was referencing. This was
unacceptable.
Diane, hey, hi, can I please not be interrupted while I give my answer? Is that okay with everybody, or do people just really need to talk? Can I give my answer, please? Thank you. She was talking about a Malcolm X speech where he talked about, he was addressing, he was saying really people should not be fighting, that really groups should link arms and speak out against white supremacy. And in those tweets, she also noted, don't Asian folks know that eventually Trump will deport them? Trump will treat them horribly. So what that call was, and if you don't know this Malcolm X speech, you will not, I mean, if people aren't really understanding that the history behind that, then they're not really going to understand what this was about. And what she was trying to say is that people should come together in solidarity. And so those tweets were found in a 4chan channel in January. They were, we know that because we've had people in 4chan that have, it's a website you should never go on. They were released the week of the Atlanta murders. And then the day after that, the Lowell alumni, the Friends of Lowell Alumni Association announced their plan to sue the school district over changes to Lowell. The reason why she filed that lawsuit also was for her own protection, because she was getting death threats. There was an article, and if you Google it, in the New York Times about Black and Latinx school board members all over the country quitting because they're getting death threats. In San Diego, there was a Black woman who called out white supremacy during a school board meeting, and she had an angry mob headed to her home. So Commissioner Collins was afraid of her life, for her life right there. And one reason why she did that was because she wanted to send a message that it was not okay for to really accuse her of doing something that where she felt like she was really spending out, trying to speak out against racism, to twist her words like that. I have seen her time and time again ask for, during school board meetings, translations for our Chinese students. I have seen her as an ally time and time again. But those tweets were taken out of context, and they ignore the long history she's had. She did eventually drop the lawsuit, but she did this for her own safety. And the NAACP supported her in this lawsuit. They did not feel it was safe to ask her that it was fair to ask her to resign. And when we talk about achievement of our students, the graduation rate for Black high schoolers since, I think they start since 2019 has gone up 5%. So she is very dear to the Black community, and that's why they have stood by her. That's why the San Francisco NAACP opposes all of these recalls. So I'm glad that we're talking about this in a forum. I think it's important to discuss. I did not like how many in our political community just use this. I think one thing Commissioner Collins was upset about, that the fact that these tweets were released on a week that would intentionally hurt Asian Americans who were suffering. And so that's why she didn't speak out right when they were released to defend herself, because she knew that people were in a place of hurt and she wanted to honor that. And she did not really call, I've talked to the woman who is the chair of the NAACP of the Fairfax County Education Committee, and she herself is Asian, and she has said, she wasn't calling people that. She was trying to make a point. But if you don't know the history behind that, if you take those tweets literally, then you're just going to say like, oh, she used the N-word. That was not really what her bigger point was. And I am glad that she dropped the lawsuit. But I also want to say, I am a public school parent. I would really appreciate, I guess, that if other groups would stop suing our school district over the mural or renaming, because that gets really expensive. So I really thank everybody for just listening and hearing me out on that. And I'm glad this question was brought up. Thank you.
I'm happy to hear you out, Brandee, but I have to respond with all due respect. You are telling the Asian American members of this audience about safety. Those tweets were hurtful. They were damaging at a time of the great anti-Asian violence here in the city and around the country. And for Commissioner Collins, again, she is not here. She has never explained, she's never owned up to what she has done to all of our community in these tweets and in her actions on the board. So do not try to explain to us what's going on here. I've had death threats against me and my staff for the work we've done on immigrant rights and civil rights. For her to take that and then say, oh, I'm going to sue Commissioner Moliga, I'm going to sue my colleagues on the school board for $87 million. The money, had she been successful, would have come out of the pockets of the teachers' salaries, out of the pockets of the student programs. That is just utterly ridiculous. And beyond that, she did not drop the lawsuit. She was kicked out of federal court by the judge. And she could very well have been sanctioned for whatever reason, perhaps out of graciousness. But Commissioner Moliga, at least publicly, we don't know because they meet behind the scenes with their lawyer. Commissioner Moliga is the one who announced, we're not going to seek attorney fees for the amount of money that the school district spent. School district spent about $110,000, $125,000 to defend that lawsuit. That's money again coming out of the school district budget, not the city budget, where the city is paying for the elections, coming out of the school district budget. So those tweets, her actions are indefensible. And that is what's motivated. We see a record number of Asian Americans signing up to vote, non-citizen parents, for the first time using Proposition N that passed in 2016 for this recall election. We're seeing people rise up, not the big names, not the big elected officials, we'll have some of them too, but average parents, average community members are speaking out against what she has done to all the members of our community.
Well, thank you both. That was a good answer for that. I do want to say to everyone, please do not interrupt the speakers. This is their time to speak and answer questions that somebody else asks. If you interrupt, we're going to have to probably either continue to mute you, or if you continue to try to speak over someone, we will have to remove you from the meeting. Unfortunately, it's unacceptable for anyone to speak over people and not give them the respect that they deserve for being here tonight. Whether you agree with them or not, it doesn't matter. They are here. They are here to give us information and keep this educational for everyone. So please do not speak over anyone. I don't want to have to remove anyone. I hate to have to even bring that up, but if it will happen. Okay. With that, Mark H., you have a question, and please have a question. Don't just.
I have a very specific question for
All right.
Commissioner Moliga, or actually anybody in the room that can answer it. I think it was John who mentioned at the beginning of this that the superintendent vote date was moved up to a date that's 2 days after the recall and 8 days before the termination date of the 3 members. Can someone please explain that? Because it smells worse than a dead fish. And I want to know why it happened and how it happened, please. Thank you.
Can I get a little bit more clarity on that question? I know he said something around the superintendent and a vote.
It sounded like, Mark, if you can restate your question for Faauuga, please.
I believe I heard at the beginning of this presentation that the superintendent vote by the board had been moved up to, I believe it was February 17th, which is an awfully coincidental date. And I'm wondering if that's true, and if it's true, how did it happen?
If I could clarify, then obviously to defer to Commissioner Moliga. What I said was originally the proposed deadline for people to apply to become superintendent was March the 1st. Over a period of time, that deadline has been pushed forward to February the 18th, just 3 days after this vote. And my suspicion, and that of others, is that this school board is trying to tie the hands of whoever remains after the election to constrain the number, to constrain who's going to be on the list of people to be interviewed and ultimately selected.
Got it. Appreciate that clarification. I can go ahead and try to address that question. And so, honestly, I was actually, in support of expediting the process. And really, for me, and several other folks, right, when you're trying to go out there and get a superintendent, right, the window, right, folks are looking for jobs starting, I think, from my understanding, February, right? So what we wanted to do was we wanted to, this is my thinking around it, was to get us in a position where that we can go out there and try to recruit a superintendent and not get the superintendent, while other superintendents were getting, recruited by other school districts, and so the timeline that they had prior to, it was we were going to end up in May or something like that in terms of landing superintendent. For me, based off of the conversations that I've been having, with other school districts and other school board members, the advice was really around, you got to get that thing moving because people are looking for jobs and you guys might end up with kind of the leftovers, so to speak, but I know from optics wise, right, it may, seem that way, but internally, that kind of was the process, but I know from optics wise, given the recall and everything, and, but really, it really is, a lot of the decisions that, I've been supporting is around trying to figure out how to put us in a position where we're going to get the most qualified, person. And, to that point, everyone is, trying to be as inclusive as possible, making sure that, through the community processes. And I know they've been meeting with individual organizations, individual groups, trying to collect information around, what type of superintendent it is that folks, are feeling like we need to, try to get into our city. But all of that is happening right now, right? But just to answer your question, Mark, a lot of that was really around, trying to go, because some superintendents, a lot of good ones, the ones that, that folks have been saying, hey, you should go get this guy. A lot of them have already been not a lot of them, but some of them have been recruited into other districts already. So, we kind of want to be competitive. So, but I know optics wise, it may seem that way, but internal wise, I promise you that's not what's going on.
Cool. Thank you, Faauuga, for that explanation. We, it's always good to have from someone from the school board. With that, Patrick Wolf, you have a question.
Yes, thank you very much. Question for Brandee Marckmann. So I don't remember exactly the words you used, but you basically said in your opening remarks that it was your experience that Commissioners Collins and Lopez actually listened to parents and were very responsive to parents. But a lot of us public school parents actually feel that Commissioners Collins and Lopez in particular really only listen to the people they like or their friends and actually don't listen to a lot of people. And it's pretty striking that you are speaking on their behalf. They are not here. John is right. They didn't provide any sort of rebuttal in the voter guide. I mean, they really literally don't seem to be responding to the record number of people who signed the petitions and the great public interest in the recall. Can you speak to that? It really does seem that they simply aren't listening or being responsive to people who are not their friends and allies.
Thank you for that question, Patrick. And I wanted to mention Commissioner Collins, and I believe also President Lopez, had another engagement tonight. There is an organization called Showing Up for Racial Justice, and they're having a forum about racial justice in SFUSD. So they had promised the students that they would show up for that. So they felt like they couldn't break their promise to the students. So who gets listened to? That's a great question. 85% of SFUSD students are children of color. They have focused their time with the Black community, the Latinx community. Gabriela Lopez spends a lot of time working with monolingual Spanish-speaking parents. If you haven't seen it, I listened to it. It was, there's a wonderful New York Times podcast called Nice White Parents. And it really does, I really encourage everybody here to listen to that, if you're a white person, to really how sometimes white parents can really come into it. Like I heard I was at the Lowell meeting where Commissioner Collins said, you know, I'm listening to racist. I heard some people saying racist things. So why are we more upset about Commissioner Collins calling, you know, why are we more upset about a Black woman saying that something is racist than the racist thing that is being said? There was a Black student delegate, and actually the push for Lowell came from the Black Student Union. That was these commissioners were listening to them saying that they felt like Lowell needed to be changed. So it sometimes depends who gets listened to. Is it parents with money? Half of our SFUSD students lived in poverty. They don't get quoted in the Chronicle. They don't get quoted in newspapers. So they have, and this is one of the reasons why I feel like they're being recalled, is because they really have prioritized a lot of their students. My child has a number of learning differences. And so I do feel like these commissioners have listened to them. Also, has anybody talked about COVID in our schools? Or we're having teachers quitting. We are having a hard time getting teachers to stay. Our teachers have all said and voted, and like unanimously, our teachers union has said that they want Commissioners Collins, Faauuga Moliga, and President Lopez to stay. So how does it feel to our teachers if we say that, like, these aren't the leaders that you should have? These are teachers going into schools that are not properly funded. My child's school doesn't have a nurse. So time and time again, Commissioner Collins and President Lopez have listened to teachers. So there are just a lot of, obviously, San Francisco is a very diverse community. I also want to get back to, you know, why saying that Asian population doesn't support. There were a number of Asian people, a very prominent activist. If you don't, many of you in the Richmond know her, Pam Tao Lee, who did not stand for did not agree with the decision that Commissioner Collins should have to resign. So and also Lena Lovett, who's the vice president of the San Francisco Democratic Party Central Committee. So, okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, so just
let me
we're on to the person with the next question.
Let me correct
you. So just to be clear, you're saying that non-responsiveness is an equity issue?
What do you mean by that, Patrick? Can you clarify what you mean?
You spent several minutes saying which parents get listened to, centering the needs of the Black and Latinx community, and so on and so forth. I was asking why Collins and Lopez have been so non-responsive to the entire process of the recall. And it's not just this event. I mean, throughout, Collins and Lopez have not been showing up, responding to the people. So it's not just a prior commitment. So I'm sorry, I'm just confused by your response because you seem to be saying that it's an equity issue. So I didn't understand.
So what exactly you're saying is an equity issue?
I'm sorry, was I unclear? The fact that Collins and Lopez have not been responding to the people, to the many people who signed the petitions, to the entire process, that it's not just this event, it's many other events that they've not been showing up to, that you said at the outset that in your experience, they've been very responsive to parents, but many parents feel like they're not very responsive to them, that they only listen to the people that they are allied with. And in fact, you are speaking on their behalf. They're not here speaking for themselves. So that's why I was just asking, like, is that not the experience you think that, is there
No, I've been where they have, I've been to other groups that have had meetings about the recall and they've shown up. They sometimes, I mean, Gabriel, like they're working full time. They're also, as I mentioned earlier, is the school, they have full-time jobs on top of what they're doing. So it's just hard for them to always
Not Ms. Collins.
Pardon me?
Not Commissioner Collins. Her husband's very wealthy and she's quite well off, which is great for her. But she
right. Okay, but I just want to say let's not judge people by who their husbands are. She does work extensively with the Black community, and I think she has to sometimes choose. Like, do I? You know, I've got parents who are worried about they can't get COVID tests because the city really hasn't done a great job of rolling them out. So it's just trying to help parents get COVID tests, trying to, she's told me, you know, I had to choose to not go to an event because a parent needed help with her daughter who'd been bullied at school. She got kicked in the stomach. These are just the stories you don't hear about. And as far as who's being responsive, there was an article in the San Francisco Chronicle today that said petition signers do skew wealthy. So yeah, we do want to have to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. And they just, you know, so I think they do their best. But again, you look at graduation rates of African-American students have gone up, I think 5% since 2019. They've really worked at that. And some parents feel jealous of that. I don't personally benefit, but I'm fine.
Nick, can I have a little bit of time to respond here as well?
We have some other people asking. Well,
Brandee, wait a second. I'm tired of you. I'm tired of you explaining how life is for those of us from minority communities here in San Francisco, for one. Second is you asserted that teachers are for the three incumbents. You don't know that, and I don't know that, because teachers haven't voted in this. The union obviously did their endorsement. That endorsement is 27 or 29 members of their political action team, not the entire school teacher core. They could very well support, we just don't know. And third, in terms of the graduation rate, I think that is a fundamental problem here. Yeah, we are graduating kids, but the key number is not the percentage of students who are graduating, the graduation rate. The key number, which is somewhere in the 80s, actually 36%. 36% of African American students who graduate are meet the A through G UC requirements. Only 36%, while some of the other communities are double that. That is a glaring inequity. That is a glaring gap. And we cannot apologize for that in San Francisco. We have to fix that. We have to bring those numbers up. Not bring them down, not bring everybody down to 36, but raise people up from 36 higher. It's not the graduation rate, it is the education rate, and that is another failing of the school board.
Cool, thank you, John. With that, I want to go to Marie Duquette. We have 4 questions here. Hopefully that'll take us for about a half hour, and then hopefully we can bid everyone good night. So with that, Marie.
Hi, thank you. I have a quick question for Commissioner Moliga. One of the things that was said by Ms. Marckmann is that the commissioners are very responsive to parents. And I have sent you many, many emails over the past few years. and I've never received a response. I have received one response from one commissioner on the board, Mr. Commissioner Bogues, but I have never received a response from you over years. So I'm just wondering, what does it take for a parent, for a taxpayer to get a response to an email? What do we have to do to get a response?
Yeah. Is it, thank you for the question. Is it Marie? Okay, yeah. First and foremost, I do want to apologize that your question didn't get, that no one responded outside of Commissioner Bogues, and, if you have any questions moving forward, feel free to email me. I promise you, I get like hundreds and hundreds of emails, and forgive me if your email got caught in the numerous emails that come, and they're coming from everywhere, vendors and just kind of like, and so, but just to answer your question, if you want to, get any of your questions resolved, you can email me, and I'll do my best to get you to staff who can support you around, around your questions. But I always try to get back to, parents and, and if I did miss this one, then I apologize, but, feel free to shoot me another one. And, again, I'll link you with staff that needs to be able to help you support to answer your question, and hopefully we can get that resolved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, Leela, right, Leela.
Yes, hi, thank you. Thank you so much. I want to say, my husband and I are teachers in the district, and I have gotten a response from Commissioner Moliga. I know he's a father and he works full time. A lot of people don't do that. You might know something about that, Brandee, but he's busy, so he's not going to be able to answer every email. But I have a question for Brandee. Brandee, can you explain to me, I was born in Asia, I was born in Iran, my husband was born in the Philippines. Can you explain to me how Asians use white supremacist thinking to get ahead? Because my family in Iran, they work hard, they try to aspire to home ownership. And in Iran, they're far removed from American whiteness. So I'm trying to understand, can Asians have values in terms of aspiring for financial stability or academic success that are allowed to be independent of whiteness? Or does every time an Asian person aspires to financial health or academic success, are we Asians, are we always replicating you white folks? Is that what psychologically is happening in our minds? I would love to have you explain it.
Lila, I'm not.
It's Layla.
So I'm sorry. My apologies for mispronouncing your name. Thank you for correcting me.
You're so polite here, unlike Twitter, but carry on with your polite shtick here. It's lovely.
Okay, I'm going to ask that people be respectful. I am not an Asian person. I do not speak on behalf of the community, and I'm here to take recall questions. So
supporting Colin. So I'd like you to explain, if you would be so gracious as you are right now, which is lovely. It's a delight. Are we Asian folks, I was born in Asia, are we always approximating whiteness when we aspire to things that humans typically define as good? Is there something intrinsically sneaky about our Asianness that means we're cozying up to white folks? I just want to understand my people, and you support her, and she grew up around Asians, so she must know a lot about us.
Okay, I'm going to not, I came to talk about the recall, and my understanding that questions were going to be about the recall. So
it's entirely about the recall, because the tweets were perceived to be problematic, because when you're in a position of power in a school district with a lot of Asians, bias is usually not something that is celebrated. If there is bias against Asian people and extreme ignorance, as evidenced by the white supremacy statement, ignorance plus power is typically not so good. So people get concerned, as you could imagine.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't speak, I'm here to answer questions about the recall. I'm not really sure what
It's my mistake. I need to be more clear. So why should we not support to recall a person presiding over a school district composed of a large Asian student population who believes that Asian people are cozying up to white supremacy? I need to understand.
I'm not aware, I'm not really sure what your question is.
Using white supremacist thinking to get ahead? Are you not familiar with the tweets, or? I just want you to explain it to me. And I think Commissioner Moliga demonstrated extraordinary courage when he addressed the bias that is apparently in Allison Collins's mind. I think that he demonstrated extraordinary courage, and it's really unfathomable the courage that he demonstrated. But if you can explain to me Asians using white supremacist thinking to get ahead, that's all I'm here for.
I'm going to jump in here. I'm not seeing this, unfortunately, either being a recall question, and I apologize for that. And we do need to move on here. So I'm sorry, but next question. Lawrence? Lawrence Lee, you need to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hi, I don't have a question. I didn't raise my hand, sorry.
Okay. Christine Lindbach.
Yes, I have a question regarding the theft of the recall petitions that occurred at the Clement Street Farmers Market. My question is simply this. Number one, do you oppose or support the prosecution of Jason Kruta, a member of the San Francisco Bernie-crats, which I believe Brandee Marckmann is a leader of? And secondly, Ms. Marckmann, do you deny that you were not at that farmers market when Mr. Kruta took those actions? We would like to know your perspective on theft and your involvement in that criminal activity. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to ask that people be respectful. Christina, I know you're an attorney for the Friends of Lowell Alumni Association, and I want to correct a couple of things you said that aren't true. Jason Kruta is not a member of the San Francisco Bernie-crats. Since I've attended the Bernie-crats meetings since 2019, he has not attended. I have not spoken to Jason Kruta since 2019. I have not communicated or emailed him in any way. I was not, I looked, because I followed the articles on this. The theft took place at 11:30 or 11 o'clock that Sunday morning. I was present I went to Zoom church. And I have, because I know there've been these, and so I was not present, I was not involved. And I'm really quite offended that you would come here and say that I would be involved in a theft of petition in any sort of way.
Please don't rephrase my question. I asked you a question, whether you were or you were not involved. And I appreciate you answering the question.
No, I was not, Ms. Lindenbuck, I was not, I was not involved.
My question, please. Since you engaged me and you invoked the names of Friends of Lowell Foundation. First, I would have asked you these questions on Twitter, but before I could, you blocked me. So I appreciate the whole I go to church and I'm a wonderful person thing, but it's not going to wash here. Secondly, I simply asked you the question whether you were or were not involved. And my third question was simply this. It's a yes or no question. Do you support the prosecution of Jason Kruta? Yes or no?
All right.
I'm going to jump in here and say that's not a recall question. I'm sorry.
Let's try to focus our questions on the subject matter of this meeting rather than taking this off.
Well, the reason why it is an issue.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lindemann.
No.
It's not, you have not made that relevant.
Has asked people to not prosecute.
That's not relevant.
That's not relevant to this conversation. And so I'm sorry.
we can't have public forums if people cannot participate along the guidelines that are set forth. The subject matters are very specific. Otherwise, we can have people interjecting things that are not relevant. And while you may think that is relevant, it's not to us. And with that regard, we do have one more person who's asking a question.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Renee.
Hi, my name is Renee DeResta. I'm a public school mother who left the district after losing confidence in it. Because even though I can't vote anymore, this is still an issue that I'm following very closely, in large part because of how SFUSD decisions impacted our lives and led us to feel that in order for our son to receive an education, in order for our two daughters to be appropriately educated, we had to leave. Now, my question is for Brandee. You made this spider web graphic here that I've put up in case people hadn't seen it. You tweet it multiple times a day. And it alleges that every parent group in this city is somehow connected and is somehow part of a vast cabal to undermine the school board, that we are all privatizers, that we are all racist Republicans. I believe you call me an Orbanite fascist multiple times a day on Twitter because I once gave an academic lecture in Hungary. You can look confused, but you aren't. So what I'd like to get at is an understanding from you in this forum about this graphic. Can you walk us through who's in the center of the, who's the spider there, and how groups like Decreasing the Distance or SF Parents or any number of, honestly, dozens, every single parent and community group in the city that has spoken out in frustration against the school board, you have put in this meme and you have smeared us constantly, me for the better part of a year. So I'm asking you here, since I'm also blocked on Twitter, how I should think about this graphic, and can you explain in these terms how all of us are part of a vast cabal to take down Allison Collins and Gabrielle Lopez, since that's the theory that you put forth every single day.
All right, I'm going to say I don't understand. When I was asked to come to this forum, I was told that people would be respectful. Many of you asking some of these questions don't live in the Richmond district. It's my turn to speak, please. I have come to PAR meetings late in 2019. It was a very respectful, and I don't understand what this has to do with the recall. It just feels like people taking personal shots at me. So I'm not going to answer that question. I will answer questions in good faith. I will not answer questions that feel like personal attacks against me.
And I have to step in and agree there as well. We cannot make personal attacks on.
Can I just give one more comment? I'm so sorry that you felt it.
With that, does anybody have any more questions? I think Gerald had one left over from the last time. So I'd like to get to his question. You gotta unmute yourself, Gerald.
Yeah, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Okay, a very nice general question. Am I correct that all three of these people are going to be up for re-election in 8 months? Yes. Okay. If they are recalled now, what happens between now and next November? Does the board just continue in a shorthanded fashion, or is there some way to replace them for the 8 months, or what happens?
Well, it's more than 8 months, Gerald. Their terms run into January of 2023.
Okay, 12 months.
They'll be voting on a new superintendent. They'll be dealing with the budget. There are many very serious issues that come up. If they are recalled, and we obviously urge that they do be recalled, the Director of Elections has until St. Patrick's Day, until March 17th, to certify the votes. And the mayor will then be selecting, under the law, under the charter, the mayor fills vacancies. She filled David Chu, position to be city attorney. She filled Joaquin Torres as the assessor, pretty uncontroversial, nobody's running against him. This has been an issue in the campaign where people say, oh, it's undemocratic because the mayor, the terrible mayor, the horrible mayor, the scary mayor is making these appointments. Well, nobody said that Kamala Harris shouldn't be vice president because Gavin Newsom would be replacing her in the Senate without a vote. Nobody said Javier Becerra shouldn't be Secretary of HHS because Gavin Newsom, the governor, under the law would be replacing him as Attorney General. So the process is that the mayor will make selections. Those individuals will be voted upon by the voters. Unlike the three who would be recalled, who may or may not run ever again, and the three who are going to be appointed to replace will be on the ballot in November, but not necessarily for a 4-year term. They still have to be ratified by the voters. So the voters will have a chance to say whether these new three should go or stay. And simultaneously, there will be the election in November for the regular 4-year term. So the impact of this recall is that we stop the current situation and allow potentially a new board to select the new superintendent and the new board to resolve the budget crisis that the current board has gotten us in.
Can I just adjust that really quickly? Yes, that is correct that the mayor would select these folks. I guess I can say as a public school parent, I feel like I want to have a voice in choosing those people. It bothers me that there's no opposing candidates because I wouldn't even, I have no idea who these people are when we don't get to come together as a community, as parents, and have a say who oversees our schools. I'm also somewhat disturbed. We talk about fiscal responsibility, I do appreciate and respect a lot of the things that Mayor Breed has done. I'm just personally troubled by a number of her direct reports, like Mohammed Nuru and Harlan Kelly, who are in jail on bribes and corruption and money laundering charges. So just, I guess, from someone who really wants to make sure somebody knows how to select someone who will be a good steward of our funds, I do not personally feel comfortable with our current mayor making those decisions.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Got 2 more questions and then that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep these questions to the recall and about the recall itself, nothing else. All right. With that, Vivian. And
Hi.
if I pronounce your name wrong, I apologize.
That's okay. It's Vivian. Thank you. I actually have a question for John. At the beginning, when everyone was introducing themselves, Ms. Marckmann mentioned that these board members have not broken any laws. And I wanted to sort of get your perspective on a response to that in terms of, are there things in the charter that they were supposed to do that they haven't done, or maybe your top 2 points as to why you think, even though they haven't broken any laws, how this sort of rises to the occasion of necessitating a recall?
Sure, thank you for the question. The fact is they have broken the law. They've broken the Brown Act when they tried to change the names of 44 schools in violation of the law. They also a violation of the Brown Act with their attempted change of the Lowell admissions policy. And finally, the Brown Act and the Environmental Quality Act went over at Washington High. They tried to take down the murals inappropriately. There are some questions about the use of by the district on bond money, and the state had to step in and say the school district may no longer be a going concern. So structurally, so some of them are unlawful activities. Some of them are failures to fulfill their basic function of oversight. And it is our view that they were spending not enough time on COVID safe reopening. They told the superintendent, no, you don't get to hire a safety coordinator. They had no plan B. And they were also sidetracked on the school renaming and on other things. So it is both their supervisorial responsibilities that they have failed, as well as some of their legal responsibilities.
Can I respond just super quickly to that? I will say, because I've talked to both Commissioner Collins and President Lopez. I know on the Lowell, and I've read through the lawsuit, the reason there was a hiccup there was because of the way that it was named. it was named, forgetting the name, something about a call for racial equity at Lowell High School. It did not specifically say we're going to be changing the admissions policy. It was a bit too vague, although everyone knew it was what it's about. Again, this is when you have part-time, like volunteer commissioners. This was really on the attorney, on the district attorney, to make sure when she puts out the agenda that it meets the Brown Act requirements. So, I mean, this is a volunteer board, so I just wanted to say, and these are really small things. I mean, there are so many things that happen. These are not like flat out crimes where they're taking money. This was just a small technicality, and people who had a lot of money decided to sue the district over things they didn't like. So it was really kind of a letter of the law, spirit of the law. Again, if they'd taken money or something like that, that would be out. So I just want to comment on that. And as for going back to schools, yes, it took a while for there are lots of districts in California that started later than San Francisco. San Francisco didn't get vaccines rolled out to teachers until March. My niece, who's a teacher in Iowa, got her vaccine in February. So our state was late at getting that done. So I think you don't send people into combat without armor. I think people were just very reluctant to send unvaccinated teachers and kids going home to unvaccinated parents. This is back in almost a year, like March of last year. We wanted to keep the COVID rates down. So that was just, that is one reason I think why it took a little longer, but I think they saved people's lives. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have one last question from Mark Z. Mark.
Sorry, I have to address Commissioner Moliga again because nobody else bothered to show up, so I apologize. And I appreciate you coming here. It means a lot. If there was a motion in a meeting of the board in the next month or two to extend the Lowell admission standards into perpetuity, would you vote yes or no on it? And can anyone else in the room speak for Collins or Lopez on that topic?
Mark, are you asking if there was just to be clear, so we're on the same page? Thank you for the question. Would I support keeping Lowell admissions policy the way it is currently if there was a motion brought forward to the board?
That's
in the
correct.
bottom of that?
That's correct. And by currently, I mean the lottery system.
The lottery system. Okay. Well, I'd have to think about that. I mean,
it's pretty simple. I mean, you guys have discussed this issue at meeting after meeting, so there's no change. So I'm not sure what, the reason given for the change was COVID and it was racial inequity, et cetera. So, look forward another year and what's the answer? And I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I'd love to hear from the other two.
Right. No. To me, the question is, I'm going to support, first of all, two things, right? One, is it doable, right, by the school district? Which is one of the reasons why I got pushed back this time right now, right? Superintendent said, logistically, infrastructure-wise, we just can't do it right now, right? And that's because of that's because of what happened, within the last year in terms of processes, right? So, is it doable? That's the question on the table. And then, for me, when people ask me this question around the law, is it even legal, right? Is it even legal? So those are the two questions, that I always juggle around when it comes to this issue. Is it in compliancy? Can we do it? General counsel, I'll ask you the question. Can we do this? And superintendent, is it something that we can roll out? I will add that, what I am in support of, in addition to all of this, is that we do have a process in place that is in compliance, but also is thoroughly vetted, with community members, with our Lowell folks, with, our African-American community, just San Francisco in general. Is it a process that we could put forward? Because here's the other thing. I strongly believe in Lowell High School in terms of it being a high academic achieving school? And can we put something in place that follows the law and is doable by the school district? I will support that. And if something comes to the board motion wise and those things are answered, then, I'll support it, but if not, then, which has been the case, then I won't support it.
If I can add to and respond to Commissioner Moliga, I want to thank him for his hesitancy in answering the question and for laying out the considerations that he has, including community participation. We need to be looking at how the kids who have been admitted under the lottery rather than the old system, how they're doing at Lowell, how happy they are, and how they're doing academically. We need to be talking to parents in the 8th grade about what their expectations are. We need to see whether the current situation is working. So Commissioner Moliga has a legal opinion that describes the legal compliance that Lowell currently has under the old system with state law. But I appreciate the fact that he has met with people and that he is laying out his considerations. That is in direct contrast to the other two candidates who are dead set on an agenda to get rid of Lowell. And it doesn't matter who they talk to. As we can tell, they don't really talk to anybody who doesn't totally agree with them. So I appreciate Commissioner Moliga's position on this. I'm a Lowell guy, a former president of the Alumni Association. As I look here tonight, representing the entire perspective of the pro recall view, I still balance out with where Commissioner Moliga has been on the on COVID, on the attorney fees not sought after from Commissioner Collins, and other matters. So continue on the position where we started, but I do want to extend and appreciate Commissioner Moliga's answer to this question.
Thank you for that, John. Brandee, I know you had a couple seconds.
Oh, no, yeah, I'd like to respond. Thank you very much.
And then that's it.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep it brief. Yeah, so basically, I live in the Richmond district. I'm a Richmond district parent, and I've lived in other cities in the US where there was not one high school that you got to take a certain test. I would like my son to go to school in high school in the Richmond district. This is our home. I would love to have him, have the wide array of, if he qualifies, it's a long time from now, challenging classes at Washington High School. I also think when you tend to concentrate these classes at one school, I mean, there's inequity. I know the Washington Alumni Association raises very respectable. They think their endowment is $1 million. The Lowell High School endowment is $5 million. And I also think about kids who live in North Beach, who live in the Excelsior. Why do kids have to go across town? I mean, this is something I don't quite understand about San Francisco to get to this one high school. Why can't we have this caliber of course at every single high school in every single community? And I'm just thinking practically as a Richmond district parent, I would rather have my child do an extra hour of studying, an extra hour of extracurricular activities instead of taking a bus across town and go to school in a place that his community, his home. Yeah, and I think where maybe a long time, there's also a California code that says you really shouldn't be looking at test scores and essay questions and standardized tests when it comes to admissions to public high schools. That's almost making a public high school private on the taxpayer dime. So I think wherever you live in the city, you should have these same high caliber classes that exist at Lowell High School. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the only school board in history that said have no Lowells. For years we've said have 2 Lowells, have 3 Lowells. This is the only school board that says have 0.
Right. Do I have a chance to respond to that?
Go ahead, and then that's it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, yeah, I think that like I think there's just this idea that like, you know, why do we have to have 2 or 3 levels? Why can't every city, why can't every high school throughout San Francisco have a huge endowment like Lowell High School? Why can't every, you know, why can't they all have access to money, access to these kinds of classes like Lowell High School? Why does it have to be in the Sunset? Why can't it be in the Richmond, the Excelsior? That's just how I respond. Thank you very much.
Cool. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Again, sfpar.org, sign up to be a member. We're always here. We're always here to help the Richmond and try to educate you on hard, tough questions like tonight. I want to thank Faauuga and Brandee and John for being here. I really appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate all of our members and guests being here tonight. Again, thank you all. Be safe and have a wonderful rest of your January. Ladies and gentlemen, good night. Thank you.
Bye.